This is Obsidian ASMR. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos. Hey, and welcome back to another smaller collection video. And today, as you can probably tell, I'm going to be talking you through the Game Boy collection that I had as a child. Now, before I get into it, I do want to say that I wasn't a massive handheld gamer. I did, for my sins, much prefer console gaming as a child. So, my collection isn't extensive, and I have to say, I didn't spend too much time playing these games, but I did have them. And there are some in here that I did spend a lot of time playing. So, if my knowledge isn't perfect or extensive, I can only apologise. And if I get anything wrong, please just correct me in the comments, and I'll be happy to take that on board and to learn. Because sadly I am not a library, although I do have quite a few games. So, this is my original Game Boy box for the Game Boy Color, and it's still got everything in it from when I first got it back in 1999. Crazy, huh? I have to say, when I picked this out to start filming the video, I have to say I was really impressed with the condition of the box. It almost looks mint. So, for those of you that are younger, the original Game Boy didn't have colour. There was also something called a Virtual Boy back in the day, which was even weirder, because instead of the typical black and white graphics, or kind of black and white, more kind of yellow and grey-ish, the Virtual Boy, which was supposed to be the first attempt at virtual reality, with like a headset that you'd put your eyes into, and it came with like this little triangular stand to keep the headset on, so it wasn't like it was strapped to your head. That had red and black as its two colours, so that was very weird, but hey, some people liked it. I never knew anybody who had one, and I certainly never had one, but it is something to consider. So when the Game Boy Color came out, it was revolutionary, and it said on the back there, introduce some colour into your life, strip away the grey daily routine and jump headfirst into a colourful world that is full of games, fun and excitement. The Game Boy Color makes all of this and more possible with its innovative colour display and huge range of games. With the Game Boy Color tucked into your pocket, you can experience exciting gameplay on another Game Boy Color through the IR communication port. Game Boy Color is compatible with all Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. And I went for, somebody bought me the teal version, which is right here. And I think this is actually quite well, or I should say one of the more popular versions, I think. So you've got a button, a B button, and a D-pad on it, as well as a select and start button. So it's very, very, very basic. And a little speaker built in here. You've got the volume on the side, as well as, I think, an external connector port, and the on-off switch on the other side. You've also got a power supply unit and port for headphones, if you wanted to put those in. I don't think I ever used that. And then on the top, I'm not sure what that's for, but I'm sure one of you will tell me. So if I open it up, it's got some old Kodak AA batteries in there, which I probably should take out in case of corrosion. And for those of you that are very interested in the specifics, it's got a 0.6 watt rating and a 300 milliamp DC3V adapter. And this one, was made in 1998. So I got this, and I remember this when I was very, very young. Very young. And the game that I used to play all the time was The Simpsons Night of the Living Treehouse of Horror. And this box, like most Game Boy boxes, is quite large compared to the game itself, as you can see there. So, help the Simpsons survive the Treehouse of Horror. It's Halloween and the Simpsons' souls are trapped at the base of Bart's treehouse. Help Bart, Maggie, Lisa, Homer, and Marge reach the top of the tree before it's too late. There were 7 levels of wacky arcade action, each featuring different Springfield locations. All 5 Simpsons family members are playable, plus a bonus level starring King Homer. Defeat Mr. Burns, Principal Skinner, Moe, and others while completing missions. So the games looked like that. You can see the PCB board, and the sticker actually covers, I think, the battery which is inside. I don't know whether this is still playable, but let's give it a go. We've got power. It's still playable. THQ. Wow, this is bringing back memories. Can you hear that music? I don't think this even had a save function, I don't think. Yeah, it was like every time that you would complete one of the missions, I think you had a set number of lives, and I remember that it wasn't easy. The first couple of missions were actually quite difficult, or at least they were for me back in the day. But then they would give you a password to get further and further along, and to kind of go back up the steps, I guess. But there you go. I won't embarrass myself by playing the game, but there's a little bit of nostalgia for you. This was, for the Game Boy Color at least, the one that I played the most. It definitely was. I think I never got to play as Marge or Homer, but I definitely played as Bart, Lisa, and Maggie. So I did okay, by the sounds of things. But that wasn't the only one that I had for the Game Boy Color. I had a couple more games that people got me. The first was Lego Stunt Rally, which was a very early Lego game. And the back says, design and build fantastical stunt tracks, then challenge friends and cool stunt rally characters to crash test for fun. Speed round the island, experimenting with daredevil loops, dangerous ramps, and fan-assisted jumps as you hone your skills and take on the boss racer of all four worlds. Then come face to face with the mysterious Mr. X, self-proclaimed greatest stunt track designer ever. I don't remember too much about this one because I was into, when I was playing like racing games at the time, it would be Crash Bandicoot or Crash Team Racing on the PlayStation 1, or a bit of Mario Kart. So it got some time, but I was determined to try to beat the Simpsons game, hence why, even after all of these years, it's still plugged into the Game Boy. But yeah, the Stunt Rally, it was okay. I'd probably give it I think I'd give it a 5 for what it was. I didn't give the Simpsons 1. I found the Simpsons quite addictive, but maybe that was just because I was a child at the time. However, the lack of a save option is pretty annoying, and harkens back to the earlier years of video games where you would have to play through the entire game, which were admittedly shorter, perfectly to get to the end. So I'd give The Simpsons Night of the Living Treehouse of Horror probably a 6 or a 7. It would have got higher if it had a save function. So those are those two. Speaking of Lego games, I loved this game so much that I actually got 2 versions of it. This is one of the earliest memories I have of video games, and it was playing the PC version with my father. I remember we went to a local supermarket, and at the time they sold PC games, as well as, all the groceries and DVDs and videos at the time. And we picked this one up because he always encouraged me to, play with Lego, and his favourite, which is Playmobil. But it was fun, it was wholesome. You play as Pepper on Lego Island, and the whole point is you got to stop this guy, the Brickster, from rewriting history and destroying the island after he was previously imprisoned in the first game. remember the bigger PC box came with a little Brickster figure, with keyring figure, which I think I still have somewhere. Obviously, this was a different game in comparison to the one on the PC, and I enjoyed it, but yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the PC version more. So the whole point is, the Brickster is back and out to cause more mischief in the wild, racing, chasing, island hopping sequel. Explore Lego Island as you skateboard around, delivering pizzas, and zap those naughty Brickster bots, I remember those, with your amazing pizza throwing skills. Meet all kinds of fun characters and collect as many trading cards as you can to trade with friends. Are you ready? I didn't get very far in this, admittedly. Again, I played it mostly on the PC, and I think that was because it was like a 3D world and 3D maps, and it had voice acting, and you know, it was just higher production, whereas at the time these handheld games were very much a kind of watered down version of others. I would imagine Lego Stunt Rally had a similar situation, but I never played Lego Stunt Rally. So, for PC games, I would have given this for nostalgia's sake and being the introduction to my video gaming career, if you can call it that, I would have given the game a 9 out of 10, but with this one being the watered down version, I'd probably give it a 6. It's still fun, but given the choice, I'd play the other one. Sorry for anybody who's a hardcore Game Boy Color fan. Sorry. And then finally, somebody bought me this, and I completely forgot I had it. And that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So again, this game was mass-produced at the time and put across various consoles. The most famous one, I think, being the PlayStation 1 version of the game, and I think I'd asked for that, and my mother thought I meant for the Game Boy. So she got me this, and then, if I'm being completely honest, sorry Mum, I was a little bit disappointed, and I think I just didn't want to play it. Obsidian was probably a little ungrateful there, and we should have just taken it. But yeah, Enter the World of. I think I did play it a little bit, to be honest with you, but I did want the PlayStation 1 version. So yeah, I probably, as I say, I probably should have been a bit more humble and thankful for what she'd done and got. You know, there are bigger problems in the world, aren't there? Enter the world of Harry Potter in an adventure filled with wizardry, fun and mystery. Encounter enchanting creatures and build Harry's spellcasting abilities as you explore this exciting new world. Trade and collect famous witches and wizards' cards to unlock extra special spells, gather magical potions and items to aid in your quest. And with friends like Hermione, Ron and Hagrid ready to help you through your first year, you might just want to defeat the evil of you-know-who. You-know-who. We're not going to say his name, but you-know-who. I think the reason why I wanted this, because I know you like my little stories and anecdotes from my younger years, was I vividly remember going to a friend's birthday party, and at the time, this was probably when we were about, well, we were quite young, but yeah, this was around the time that Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or in America, the Sorcerer's Stone, came out in theatres. So he decided that he wanted a wizard-themed party, and I'm pretty sure he had a PlayStation 1 set up there. And I played a bit of this game on the PlayStation 1 and was, entranced by how realistic it looked. But if you're aware of the graphics for the PS1 game, and especially PS1 Hagrid, you'd probably laugh at me if I said that to you today. So, I would, it's the march of time, isn't it, and technology, so I'd probably give this a 6 for the Game Boy. I'm going to stick with 6. But these aren't the games that the Game Boy is remembered for. The Game Boy is remembered for 2 specific franchises, and that is what led to its success. I did have one of those games for the Game Boy Color, but I'm not quite sure where it's gone. I'll keep you updated, and maybe do a second version of this, or an updated version with lost games that I've come back and found, if I do find it. But as with any console, as with time, they become outdated and the technology ages, and things could be done better. So, after the Game Boy Color, which was the second iteration of the Game Boy console, after the original, of course, a third generation was brought forward, and it was called the Game Boy Advance, and that was more kind of rectangular. And if you imagine like a PSP, it was a bit like a PSP, but that didn't last very long before another version came out, and that was the version I upgraded to. And that was the Game Boy Advanced SP, which I got in blue, or blau, or bleu, or blau, or azul, or blue, whichever one is appropriate to you. It looked like this, had a bit of a flip screen. And effectively, this is quite dusty. So it says on the back here, the best Game Boy ever, and ironically it was the last Game Boy ever. New integrated screen light, new pocket size with a flip-top screen, a new long-lasting rechargeable battery, 32-bit technology, high-resolution 32,000 colour screen, and play all the Game Boy games on it. So, this was quite a powerful bit of kit. And it came with a wireless adapter, which was pretty high tech at the time. So if you had 2 Game Boys with 2 of these wireless adapters in it, they could talk to one another wirelessly. I know, how novel is that? Because you've got to remember, at the time, if you wanted to connect 2 devices, there was no Bluetooth. That was very new technology. There was no Wi-Fi for things like this, because they needed a Wi-Fi adapter, and those things were big back then. You had to get a cable and connect them that way, which sounds so foreign these days, and so dated. I mean, it is dated, but back when I was a kid, you didn't have USB sticks, you had floppy disks. So, if you don't know what a floppy disk is, go Google it and you'll be surprised. But what I wanted to say about this console, based on what it said at the back there, this had technology. Again, doesn't sound like a lot, but when you bear in mind that just 10 years prior, and in some cases 5 years prior, some of the consoles were like 8-bit or 16-bit, and those are the home consoles, like, I'm pretty sure the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES or the Super Nintendo, try saying that again, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, weren't much more powerful than this. And in my lifetime, I've been amazed at how quickly technology has moved from this to, HD, to 4K, and now to super high definition, or super 4K, or even 8K, in some circumstances for the graphical abilities. And just, you look at what I started with, and compare that to, like, Cyberpunk 2077, or, I don't know, Horizon Forbidden West, or any of those other massive open world games, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, massive maps. It is phenomenal. Grand Theft Auto, another example of the cuff. It's phenomenal how quickly this stuff has marched forward. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. So, this is what it looks like, and this had a lot more wear than the Game Boy Color. You got a left and a right on the back, along with a cord to connect it to a GameCube, and I think that was another version. That was the wireless or wired connection to the internet. You got the volume button, you got the power button, and if you open it up, you've got the screen with the light, the D-pad, and the A and the B button, and select and start with the speaker in the middle. This was released in 2002, and oh boy did I get a lot of use out of this. You probably saw what was in the back, but I'm going to start with this game. Now Sonic has a bit of an interesting history because he was originally a Sega mascot, so kind of in competition with Nintendo and Mario. But if you know your gaming history, you know that Sega didn't really do very well in the console wars, and the last console that Sega put out was the Sega Dreamcast, around the same time as the PlayStation 1. By this point, in 2004, that had been almost 10 years ago, and Sonic had moved very firmly across to other consoles like the Xbox and the Xbox and the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2. So he'd become multi-platform. But to get that truly authentic or retro Sonic experience, the best way to play it was on a GameCube, or Game Boy, I should say, not GameCube. And that's why I picked this up. I was quite a fan of Sonic at the time, and this was around the time that Sonic Heroes came out, and I played that. I forgot to mention in the Xbox, the original Xbox game collection, that was one that I just could not find my Sonic Heroes copy, but I played that a lot as a kid. And I loved that game. I remember the marketing campaign for it, which is weird that I remember that, but I do. So I wanted more Sonic, and my grandfather, God rest him, bought me this, and I remember playing this with him when we went down to the local supermarket. And, I was one of the early adopters of, all these screens and being caught up in it, and he'd tell me off for it, but he was also really proud, or played along, I should say, when I would show him that I'd beaten a level, or I'd done this or I'd done that. You know, the kind of pride that grandparents take, or typically take, in their grandkids, because they don't have all the hassle of actually raising them. They get the good bits. But yeah, it was like playing one of the original Sonic games. And as you can see, the games themselves are a lot smaller than the Game Boy Color. And as you saw in the DS collection that I showed you, the games got even smaller than this. And I mean, the Switch games are tiny, and that blows my mind as well. And I find it incredible that they're still sticking with cartridges, and they've got the cartridge technology to such a degree that, you know, they look that amazing on the Switch. Really is impressive. So I got quite a lot of hours out of this. I think the last Sonic game I played properly was Shadow the Hedgehog on the PlayStation 2. That just had loads of like guns. But yeah, basically, I'd give this one a 7. I really enjoyed it, and I've got very fond memories of it. So I'll take that, and I'll put that over here. This, by the way, if you wanted to know about it, plug it in the back there, then you turn it on, and job's a good one. And the beautiful thing with this is you didn't need to take out the batteries and then put new batteries in. You would literally just recharge that. Although I imagine that battery has degraded somewhat now, and I would need to change it over if I could even get the parts for it. But I might do that, you know, I might have a bit of a retro session. I'll take that off. So, the game that I've got in the back of my Game Boy is Pokemon Fire Red version, which is a remake or a remaster of the original Pokemon Red version, but for the Game Boy Advance SP. And if you look at the top there, you can see the silhouette of what an Advanced or Game Boy Advance looked like, as opposed to the SP that you've got there. So, a new thrilling Pokemon adventure with many mysteries await you. The Kanto region, which is actually a region within Tokyo, unfolds numerous exciting quests only the true Pokemon trainers can master. Collect and raise your Pokemon in order to prove yourself in the Pokemon League, while single-handedly bringing down Team Rocket, who blast off at the speed of light. Surrender now, or prepare to fight. That's right, Team Rocket's rocket. And do you have what it takes to become the ultimate Pokemon master? There are hundreds of Pokemon to discover. Link up and trade with a friend to catch them all. 2-on-2 battles. Use 2 of your Pokemon in battles at the same time. Trade, battle, and chat wirelessly with other Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green trainers. All new wireless adapter comes packed with every game. So one of these. Engage in intense multiplayer battles with up to 4 players and bring Pokemon caught in Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green to Ruby, Sapphire, and Pokemon Colosseum. Multiplayer games require 1 game pack per player and the Game Boy Advance Game Link cable, sold separately, or the Game Boy Advanced Wireless Adapter accessory. So, if we have a look at it, that is my Pokemon Fire Red version of the game. I don't know whether it still works, but I do remember that I was around 2011. I went through a bit of a phase, 2011 to 2012, of going back and playing Fire Red and Ruby, which was, I guess, a nostalgic thing. But while I talk about that, I'll also bring you first proper Pokemon game that I got, which was Ruby, 3rd generation, with my boy Torchic and Blaziken. And this is in the Hoenn region, a place of masterful heroes and mysterious teams of friendship and battles. As the new kid in town, you set off on a journey into as a Pokemon trainer. Who knows what wonders and dangers await you? Now it's time to grab your gear and head out on your own. This had over 200 Pokemon, and I so vividly remember this. I remember the sprites, I remember everything. I was glued to this game, wanting to defeat Team Magma and catch Groudon or Groudon, or however you pronounce it. And here is my Pokemon Ruby version from all those years ago, and I think it still works. I might need to change the clock on it or something. I've got this weird sentimentality with the Pokemon in the games, to be honest with you, where, you know, like with Espeon and Umbreon from my Colosseum game, and my Blaziken and Charizard and all the others that I had in Ruby and Fire Red, I kind of want to bring them from these games all the way up to my current generation, and I think you can do that just about if you link. What you would need is an old Nintendo DS, like one of the originals that has both the DS game port and the ability to plug these in, and you would need to defeat the boss on Ruby, and I think the Elite Four, same with Fire Red, and then you'd also need to do that for Pearl, and I'm pretty sure some of the others leading up to the modern day. But it is theoretically possible, I believe, to get the Pokemon from Ruby all the way up to the modern day. I don't think you can do it with Silver or Gold or the original Red and Blue. I don't think, but I could be wrong. Now, the bonus one for you is I went on a trip when I was younger across the English Channel on a ferry, so a big boat, with my dad, and I was absolutely glued to this, and he was like, get off it, enjoy the experience, you know, quite like my granddad. But you know, it was just magical, the experience. But at the time, you know, you get Ruby version, you get Red version, you get Blue version, you get Fire Red, you get Leaf Green. Well, I was so into this that I wanted to play Sapphire, but we were in France, and I couldn't help but say, oh, I want it. I think we were in Marseille at the time, because my dad, for whatever reason, is a big fan of Marseille. So he bought me Pokemon version Saphir. Ouais. We are talking about the French version, and I thought at the time, because I was young and silly, and I'm sorry about that French accent, ironically, my family do have a little bit of French ancestry, but yeah, I cannot speak the language properly. I've tried. I'm better at German than I am French. Yeah, it doesn't give the option for English, so the entire thing is in French, and I couldn't understand at the time. I could probably make it out now, but you know, there you go. I've got a French immaculate version of Pokemon Sapphire, literally untouched, apart from a couple of times. So, with any Pokemon game, I think spanned through generations. So it's quite easy for me to say that Ruby, for me, is a 10. And similarly, Fire Red, I think, is a great remaster of the original game with a lot of the new, or at the time, modern dynamics like two Pokemon battling at once. And these two games were pretty much the entirety of the time I spent on the Game Boy Advance, and I've guarded them, and I love them, and I keep them very, very close, even though the boxes weren't always with the game cartridges themselves. So, I mean, yes, it's French, but it's still a fantastic game, so I'd give all of these, I think I'd give them a 10. If I'm brutally honest with you, this generation was incredible. I know Silver and Gold were viewed as seismic as well, and I agree, some of my favourite Pokemon are from that generation of games, you know, Umbreon and Espeon. But the hype around Pokemon at this time, with Colosseum, with these coming out, and then Emerald and Rayquaza, it was huge. So yeah, there you go. And that is my Game Boy collection. So, as always, I hope you've enjoyed this travel back through time with me and my takes, some of them may be hot takes, on what's gone on with these games and my thoughts on them. Hopefully I've given you some little facts and bits of trivia that you weren't previously aware of. And comment below, you know, did you agree with my views? Do you think I'm way off the mark with some of them? I absolutely love to hear from you all. And a big thank you to everybody that does comment. I really appreciate hearing from you, I really, really do. Again, I am bowled over at how rapidly this little community is growing, and how many hours you guys are watching of this content regularly now. It's amazing. It really is to think that, you know, this all started a year ago when I didn't really know what I was doing and didn't have a schedule, and, you know, yeah, I was trying anything, to be fair, in terms of video ideas, mostly solitaire, and I still love solitaire. But you've all seemed to really get interested with these video collections and a lot of the Dragon Ball Z stuff, which, you know, those are two big passions in my life. So I'm happy to talk through them with you. Right, that's enough rambling, and hopefully you're all asleep at this point. So, as always, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. I hope each and every one of you has a fantastic week and month and year to come. And all that's left for me to say is,